What's going on, everybody, and welcome in to this edition of B-Shape Daily. Brenden Schaeffer here with you in the early morning hours now of Wednesday, July 19th, 2023. We're talking, though, about the Cardinals' walk-off win on Tuesday over the Miami Marlins, as Nolan Arenado wants nothing to do with your white flag. Not a thing to do with it, as the Cardinals have now won 4 games in a row. Really exciting, compelling ball game at Busch Stadium tonight. It took 10 innings to get it done, but Arenado with a screaming line drive over the left field wall cements a 5-2 winner to put the Cardinals to 4 wins in a row, 7 of their last 9, and now officially out of last place in the National League Central. The Pirates have dipped below St. Louis. The Cubs are within sight of the Cardinals at this point, and we know the Cardinals have a 4-game series coming up this weekend at Wrigley. So I don't know, guys. Things are I'm going to be careful about the way I say this. I think I phrased it exactly the way that I wanted to in the tweet that I sent earlier tonight. So rather than put myself into a situation where I'm going to regret saying something, I'm just going to scroll back and find the tweet, because I stood by it then. So I think it's good enough for the podcast now. Stands to reason. I said the Cardinals have now won 7 of their past 9. If they can beat Alcantara in a bullpen game tomorrow, I'd be willing to entertain the possibility that things could get interesting at some point. Right? Lots of little caveats in there. I'd be willing to entertain the possibility, we're already kind of decreasing our commitment, that things could get interesting at some point. All right, so we're hardly saying anything at all, so let's not freak out here, folks. But the Cardinals are 10 games back, a number that Nolan Arenado, for a guy who doesn't look at the standings, sure seemed to know right off the top of his head. It's interesting to know that tonight. A lot of Cardinals talk coming your way on B-Shape Daily tonight. Appreciate you guys for being with me. I don't want to waste any time, because I do this thing again where I write my article for KMOV. Check it out. It's a banger. Or not. I don't know. It was good, though. Check it out, kmov.com/sports. But I do this thing where I take all night, and then I am like, well, probably should start recording that podcast. And then next thing you know, it's 5 a.m. So we're going to try to avoid a repeat of what happened yesterday to me and get right into the content of the show tonight as we talk about, obviously, the Arenado home run, his 21st of the season, his first walk-off home run as a Cardinal. That's pretty cool. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the fact that Dylan Carlson is basically Truman showing me at this point. I feel like I'm being punked. It's like an Ashton Kutcher thing. Anything that Dylan Carlson can possibly do well on a baseball field is playing out before my very eyes. If he would have hit that walk-off home run leading off the bottom of the ninth, I think I would have ceased to exist, because it's gotten to the point where, like, people in the press box know what's going on. I'm going back and forth between Brandon Kiley, BK on 101 ESPN. We're messaging back and forth because he has put out the bold claim that the Cardinals do not have an everyday center fielder. They don't have a player capable of defensively playing the center field position on a daily basis anywhere on their roster. And, of course, we all know how I feel about that. Hashtag Everyday Dylan. We're not getting our way with the everyday thing, but Dylan does come into the game as a pinch hitter and then stays in the game for defense. Credit to Ollie Marmol for kind of learning the ropes on just putting Dylan into center field when he does come into the game. Newbar shifting to left field. Like I said, it took him a few months, but this Cardinals team, I think, has come around on at least acknowledging Dylan defensively is the guy that you want. If he's going to be on the field, just put him in center. Right? Now, if and when Tommy Edman returns and that becomes a whole thing, maybe we see some regression in that regard. But nevertheless, Carlson with a nice catch in center. Draws a walk today, scores a run off the bench, had that line drive. I looked at the StatCast, I'm not going to lie to you, because I was curious what I was going to see. Over 100 miles per hour on the deep fly to center field from Carlson. I thought it was nice, too, that StatCast really trying to pump my tires a little bit, pump Dylan Carlson's tires a little bit. Like, again, it's not me. I'm not doing anything, but it is sort of becoming my brand a little bit here to, track the good things that Dylan Carlson is doing as the team continues to find reason to minimize him and his role on the roster. So we've got that going on. Like I mentioned, the press box is is sort of in on it. Jeff Jones tweeted out, he's sitting a handful of seats to my right in the press box, but he said, I think Brenden Schaeffer is about to, or at bschaeffer12, he tagged me, is about to put his head through a window. I said, no worries, my window is open in the press box, so that was not a concern. But I was laughing. It was honestly comedic, the fact that over the last 2 days, I don't know what I did to deserve all this good fortune, but Dylan Carlson has absolutely turned it on, which is not to say that he wasn't playing capably before that, but he seems like right now he can do no wrong. Even that line drive, which was caught, it was an out in the bottom of the ninth, but it was from the left side of the plate, which everybody says he can't do. He can't hit right-handed pitching, which I know the numbers against right-handed pitching for him are lesser than what he's done historically against lefties, but that would be one where I would say, yep, took a good AB, just did not get the result. I believe the XBA, if you look at StatCast, the expected batting average was actually above 500 on that batted ball by Dylan Carlson. So I'm just saying. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. But we'll talk some Dylan Carlson tonight. We'll talk some Arenado tonight. Like I mentioned, I kind of snuck that in there at the beginning with him kind of knowing the standings for a guy who doesn't look at the standings. And I'm not trying to rip him for that. I think it's actually admirable. But I understand with where the Cardinals are at, it's not necessarily in vogue. It's not the popular thing probably to go, oh, yeah, we're going to make this comeback, and we've got this on lock. Like, they've got 4 wins in a row right now, and you can remember a time this season where every win the Cardinals were able to scrape together, it felt like a house of cards before you were able to secure it in the 9th inning or the 10th inning or whenever it may arrive. There have been times this season where it's like, if you get close to the win and you even think about it being a win, it is going to turn into a loss. And so Arenado knows better than to sit back and say, oh, we've got a run within us. We think we can make a run here at the division. He has taken the other approach to it. I'm not looking at that stuff. It's depressing to think about. I don't want anything to do with it. But, oh, by the way, we're 10 games back. We passed the Pirates tonight. I don't think we can make the wild card, but I'll do some calculations later. No, I'm kidding. He didn't say all that. But he did say, 10 games back in the division at this point. So he knew, despite not looking at it. So I'm having a little bit of fun with that because I think it is something that shows, like, the dream has not died within the far reaches of the minds in this clubhouse. I think it's still something that it's on the back burner. When they say, hey, we're coming in tomorrow to try to win a baseball game, I think they mean that. But I also think, like I said, again, even if I were to say right now, I also think things could get interesting. I'm not going to say that because I need the barriers, right? The barriers that I put up in my tweet. If they can beat Alcantara tomorrow in a bullpen game, which Dakota Hudson, by the way, will start the bullpen game for the Cardinals. We'll see how deep he can go, but Ollie Marmol let us know that tonight. Sandy Alcantara, on the other side, hasn't had a great season, but if the Cardinals can beat him, which, again, that's the first if. We've already set up one barrier. Then I would be willing to entertain the possibility, nothing concrete about that things could, there's another little barrier, get interesting, which actually has no meaning whatsoever, at some point. So we've got like 5 barriers that I put up, maybe even 6. I feel like that's not saying anything too bold. The team is still 10 games back. The team is still 11 games below 500. The team is still in 4th place in the National League Central Division. But at the same time, they've won 7 of 9. I know it sort of doesn't feel like it, but 4 in a row, it should feel like that because they've done a nice job. Talk about how they came by the 5-2 win tonight over the Miami Marlins. Appreciate you guys for being here, as always. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in on YouTube. It is absolutely the case that Tuesday was the biggest and most exciting day that I have had when it comes to watching the way you guys have supported the YouTube videos. Because 2 of them were posted. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, which, by the way, even if you're a YouTube subscriber, check out Spotify as well, because you just never know when it could come in handy. Spotify's nice because you don't have to have the phone open, right? Maybe you have YouTube Premium, and so that's not a factor, but on Spotify, you can close your phone, save your battery, and listen at the same time. We'll do lots of live streams. We're kind of in a groove right now of just doing these pre-recorded podcasts, and I feel like that's working for us here for a little while. Certainly, when we get into some trade talks and stuff like that, I'd like to do some live streams. I still got some technical stuff to work out. It did not please me that the last time I put a live stream on there, I had to restart it a time or two. Really gets under my nerves, and so operating under some slim margins right now in terms of the timing of it all. And so we've just been rocking with recording these basically overnight, getting them up by the morning so that people are ready to go when they wake up with the podcast. That's the goal. That's the name of the game. Make sure you guys are subscribed to this YouTube channel. If you like Daily Cardinals content, maybe you've listened to one or two of these episodes before, but you haven't bothered to click that subscribe button. It's free. There's no obligation other than just give it a click, and then you'll get notified, I guess. I think you maybe have to click the bell, too, for notifications. But at any rate, if you're subscribed, you'll then be in the crew. You'll be part of the crew of, hey, we're talking Cardinals the rest of the way. Win, lose, or draw. I don't think that could happen. Can't draw. But win or lose and sell or not sell, which, again, John Mozeliak came out Monday and said they're selling. The Dylan Carlson episode from Tuesday ended up being huge on here. But like I said, if you're on Spotify, you saw or you got to listen to all 80 minutes of the B-Shape Daily podcast consecutively. YouTube, I broke it down into two different videos. The first one on Dylan Carlson. The second one really dove into John Mozeliak's quotes, audio of everything he said, sort of lay out on Monday, how the Cardinals are going to be sellers, the reasoning behind that, where they're at with everything, and we just ran through a lot of different Mo quotes. And so if you missed the Mozeliak video of him waving the white flag, that's the thumbnail on YouTube. Literally, John Mozeliak in a silhouette of Busch Stadium or whatever with a white flag graphic. I had way too much time photoshopping that together. But check that out if you haven't seen it. But it also could get to a point this week where I don't know how relevant any of it will be anymore if the Cardinals actually go on a little bit of a run. There is one thing that happened on Monday that John Mozeliak said in terms of, and it was a good question by Frank Cusimano, because now only 2 days later, it is suddenly very relevant in terms of where the Cardinals stand. But Frank wanted to know, like, is there a circumstance over the next couple of weeks where y'all go on a bit of a run here and that changes this whole dog and pony show we're having right now about we're going to sell and we're going to prepare for 2024. I know that I was still kind of like trying to introduce the show, and I'm just having a stream of consciousness moment here, but you guys are used to that. But since I'm talking about it now, I want to just go ahead and play this audio for you. Frank Cusimano asking the question and John Mozeliak answering it, because it's interesting how much closer we're getting to the scenario that John Mozeliak painted for the Cardinals potentially putting a pause to the whole notion of selling. And within 2 days, I think we've already gotten to a point where I'm starting to wonder, like, could this happen? Is it possible that this would come to fruition? Here's Frank and then John Mozeliak answering his question.
Mo, does what happened in the next 2 weeks have anything to do on what you will actually do at the deadline?
In terms of like how we play, you mean?
Yes.
Does performance, wins, losses change our direction? I would say probably not at this point. I think where we are and where we are in the standings, it's going to make it very difficult to change that. It's not to say that if we, won 8 straight, you might take a pause in how you think about something. But I would say from our standpoint on how we're thinking about using our energy and time right now, it won't change.
All right. Of course, John Mozeliak, you hear there, finishes the quote by saying, we don't anticipate changing our energy from, as a front office staff, devoting it toward figuring out the sell moves that could propel us forward for 2024. But did you catch the number there that he said? Well, if we win 8 games in a row, then maybe we take a pause. All right. The Cardinals have now won 4 games in a row. 4 more would be 8. Now, I don't know if he meant like 8 from this day, 8 total, because they did ride in on a 2-game winning streak, if you can even call it that, as of the Monday afternoon powwow with the reporters at Busch Stadium. Then they have since won 2 games over the Miami Marlins. Here they are in a situation where, I don't know, it's starting to get, not interesting, but the thing that I said before with the 5 different caveats, it's starting to get to that point where I do think you need to win tomorrow before it makes sense to start really getting too giddy about this stuff. And who's going to be giddy about being 9 and maybe still 10 back if the Brewers should win tomorrow? Nobody should be, right? But it is kind of fun, right, to have something to talk about in a positive light when it comes to the Cardinals. Like, they're starting to gel and vibe a little bit the way that I think everybody expected to see them do at some point when everything was going so poorly early on. At first, it was like, oh, it's April, like they'll figure it out. Then May and the Wilson Contreras stuff's happening, and you're thinking, oh, man, this really is something. But my gosh, there's still so much baseball left to be played. Surely they're going to kind of come into their own a little bit this will be a blip. They'll figure it out. And people kind of fell off the bandwagon, I think, as time went along and said, no, I think this, I've come to realize that this is real and the Cardinals might just not be very good this year, right? Like there have been various levels of that going on, depending on your disposition as a Cardinals fan. But it's now kind of getting to the point where you think about the things that would have made for a nice run if the Cardinals hadn't waited so long to do it, which like, technically they could still do it. 60 some odd games left, but let's be realistic. You'd have to have that like 17 game winning streak of September 2021 to consider legitimately having a go at this thing. I think that's really the territory we'd be talking about. 4 in a row is great. 7 of 9 is nice and fun and warm and fuzzy, but I'm not trying to pretend that it's substantial in a way that's going to make a difference unless you do that like 3 more times, right? If you win 7 of 9 the next 3 times you play 9 games, you go 21-6 in your next 27 games, then we're having a conversation. We're having a very serious conversation heading into, the middle of August, late August, to say what's this going to look like and can they actually do something? Right now, it's not to that point yet, but I think the Cardinals are playing with sort of a looseness that they didn't have before. Ollie Marmol kind of described that the level of pressing, and maybe it wasn't Marmol. I know Mozeliak talked about this yesterday, Monday as well. Just the level of kind of pressure that the guys put on themselves after things didn't get off to the start that everybody anticipated. It sort of became a self-fulfilling prophecy. You have a lot of guys that, you think about Arenado and they talk about how he burns hot and he's only got one gear, he's only got one temperature. And when things were going poorly, it's like, well, maybe that causes you to sort of dig the hole a little bit deeper and put strain and put stress on you and maybe those around you when things aren't going well, and having that type of personality. So I don't know. It's not even an Arenado thing specifically, but this entire team sort of got into that position and were, for various reasons, unable to pull themselves out of it. Maybe until now that they've kind of loosened up. We'll see if this is something they can sustain. Again, Ollie Marmol doesn't want to talk about it. Arenado doesn't want to talk about it. Guys don't want to talk about, hey, Mozeliak said you're selling off pieces, and some of the pieces that are being discussed that are like no-brainers to move because they're expiring contracts, like Montgomery, who pitched really well tonight. Was good to see him get back out there and put the hamstring thing behind him. But if you're a Cardinals team that's selling, I don't know if you have him make another start. I know it's still like 12, 13 days before the deadline, and so he'd have 2 more turns conceivably before that takes place. But I don't know. His value is probably what it is. I don't know if it's getting any higher. And to think about, if you are dead set on selling, the idea that you're going to put him back out there to potentially risk injury could be, catastrophic if that goes wrong. You could be potentially costing yourself a legitimate pitching prospect or a pitcher that could be part of your team for the next 4 or 5 years or something. It's kind of a balancing act that the Cardinals are going to have to figure out. Can't play scared, but again, when you're this close to the finish line, if you're working on a deal, I could see some level of wanting to protect him. I think it's a little too early right now, though. But if he pitches on the 24th or 23rd, whatever that is, maybe that's the last one. Like, it'll be interesting to see kind of the way that goes. But then on the other side, there's always the notion that the Cardinals, again, have gone on a little bit of a run right now, and they need to kind of double that. They need to replicate what they've been doing over the past couple of weeks and do it again and again and then a third time before they can really get to a territory that I think is going to be meaningful in terms of trying to track down the Brewers and the Reds. And really, those are the 2 teams at the top of the division that are above 500. But the Reds have now lost like 5 or 6 in a row, too. So Milwaukee is not infallible. That's part of what makes this interesting, too, is everybody that has held that crown or the pole position, if you will, of the NL Central at a given point this season has lost it in dramatic fashion. With the Pirates were up there for a little while, and then they have fallen all the way to 5th place. They're in last behind St. Louis at this point in time. The Reds were there for a couple weeks or whatever it was, and now they have just completely had the wheels fall off of them a little bit. I believe Ellie De La Cruz was fitted for his golden sombrero on Tuesday night, if I'm not mistaken. 4 strikeouts in a game. So, things are kind of topsy-turvy, and it's going to be interesting to see where the Brewers are, because there was a point in time where I thought, hey, if the Brewers are not looking like they're super confident they're going to win this division, I could totally see them moving Corbin Burnes at the deadline to try and restock for the future, since I just don't think he's a long-term asset there in Milwaukee. given the kind of runaround with the arbitration that went down, and he was very public about not being happy about the way he was treated throughout that process. So I was speculative that could be something that would take place. But if the Reds are falling off the map and the Cardinals won't get up off the mat, then Milwaukee might say, yeah, we should probably keep this core together because we're winning this division by default. We'll see how it shakes out. But when I talk about Ollie and Arenado not really wanting to get into the idea of, hey, we've said we're selling, didn't come out of my mouth, but it came out of that guy's mouth, and he's kind of in charge around here. But also we're winning games right now, and now those guys and everybody's going to be getting questions about, hey, this whole thing about selling, is that something that's such a good idea if you guys are starting to put a run together? And Ollie said, I don't want to even think about that. I've got nothing to do with that. I'm not worrying about that. Come here, try to win a game tomorrow. Arenado basically same mindset, looking to win a game tomorrow. But it is really interesting because, yes, these pitchers that are probably on the move are the guys that are helping to pace this thing right now. 6 innings of 1-run baseball tonight from Jordan Montgomery, who said he didn't really feel sharp. His stuff wasn't that great. I asked Ollie Marmol about it, and he said, yeah, no, the sharpness wasn't really there for Montgomery. He kind of found it as he went along. But with the layoff, it was 11 days between starts for him with the hamstring thing and then the All-Star break. The Cardinals moved him to the very back of the rotation to give him extra time to make sure he was fully recovered, which I think was a good thing, and it ended up working out really well. But you had him throw the ball great tonight. Jordan Hicks got into a little bit of danger in the ninth, but was able to pitch out of it. Luis Arias came into the night hitting .378 on the season, the ridiculously good contact hitter for the Miami Marlins. He struck out twice tonight for the first time all year. Chris Stratton got him on a back foot slider, and then Jordan Hicks basically did the same thing in the ninth, and that was a necessary moment of this game in a situation where it's first and third, nobody out in the top of the ninth. You get that first guy, and then it's a situation where it's like, okay, we can kind of relax a little bit. Not much, given it's still first and third, but like a double play does get you out of the inning at that point. Instead, it was a grounder chopped back to Jordan Hicks. The entire ballpark yelled home, which I thought was hilarious. Like, you could audibly hear it in the press box. I imagine Jordan Hicks could hear it on the field. And he did throw home, and Wilson Contreras applied the tag in time to cut down the runner there. And then a strikeout to end the inning got Jordan Hicks out of a first and third, nobody out jam. And that's a guy that you're talking about trading. So you don't win that game tonight if Jordan Hicks isn't on this team. So the two competing interests, the dichotomy of those two things, for a Cardinals team that is in a division that I still think we can call it relatively bad, right? The Pirates are bad. The Cubs are below 500. The Reds, coming back down to earth, could maybe only end up winning 75 to 80 games, and maybe that's generous if they really should fall off the map as a result of their near league worst pitching. Like, all this time the Reds have been doing this, it has not been because their starting rotation is any good. I think the ERA is north of 6 for that pitching staff, and so that's something that's not just going to be fixed by magic, which is why maybe the Brewers do have a little bit more of a more believable foothold in being able to kind of hang on to this thing. But I just still am not all that impressed with their offensive alignment on a daily basis. Their 1 through 9, I just don't think is strong enough if they don't continue to get really solid pitching. So I'm kind of keeping my eye on that situation. If you're the Cardinals, I think you should be too. But you also have to be realistic about where you are, given that you're still, 11 games below 500? Like, if 81, 82 wins is going to win this division, which is not outside the realm of possibility, I think the Brewers will probably still get to 84, 85, maybe even beyond that if they can find their stride. But at the same time, I find it kind of hard to wrap my head around, because if the Cardinals do end up within striking distance, this is not a team that's had a losing season since 2007. They're always in the playoff mix coming down to the final weeks of the season. And if you have a legitimate chance to be exactly that again this year, Cardinals organization over the past 15, 20 years should know as well as anybody that all you got to do is get in. I know fans don't like hearing that because they worry that what has happened, or they pose it that what has happened is that the Cardinals have sort of fallen into this trap and this mindset of, well, we don't have to really make a top-notch roster happen because all we got to do is get in and then hope for like the lucky charms or whatever to go our way, and we end up claiming a World Series as a result. It's not a very good probably path and game plan in order to make that happen. But I also think the Cardinals fans overblow a little bit in their description of the fact that the Cardinals just do that now. I think it's more nuanced than that, and I don't really intend to get into all of that tonight, because right now the Cardinals in 2023 aren't even the team that's going to be looking to win their division necessarily, and so it's kind of a moot point to get into, well, here's how you really build to win once you get to October, because they probably aren't even doing that. But I do think it's an interesting spot where, yes, they've said they're selling, but if this division should happen to come back toward them a little bit based on their own play and the play of everybody else, just because of the historical nature of what the Cardinals and Cardinals fans are used to, it's really hard to figure that, they're just going to still kind of stick to their guns and sell and give up on potentially making a run at this. Because like I mentioned, you're getting the starting pitching, you're getting the relief pitching. Jack Flaherty's looking pretty solid. Jordan Montgomery has been their best pitcher all year. Jordan Hicks has really settled into his role. Those are the three guys that you're most likely to trade. Even Chris Stratton is on an expiring contract, and he has done a nice job this season. More of a middle relief guy, but has done a solid job. If all four of those guys are being moved, you could score 6 or 8 runs a night if you're the Cardinal offense, and they very well might do that. I think that's within the range of outcomes. Not every night, but on a pretty regular basis. I think they've got the kinds of offense that, again, can be one of the best in the league, but they could score that many runs and still lose a very high number of games because the pitching will be in absolute turmoil if you go through with this mindset of, hey, we're going to be sellers at the deadline and trade our expiring pitching contracts. That's going to put you in a situation where you basically are doing what we've said they've announced they're going to do, which is wave the white flag. Because I just genuinely, even if they continue to win games right now, if they make the decision and trade, I'm not going to say just any one of these players, but if they trade off the 3 main pitchers that we've been talking about, Montgomery, Flaherty, and Hicks, and they're all gone, I don't think there is any way the Cardinals win more than half their games from that point on. I think it's borderline impossible because you're going to put Dakota Hudson back in the rotation, and maybe he has some good results, but it's been a while since we've seen that realistically. Steven Matz, maybe he has a renaissance and that ends up being a stabilizing force. But if that's the case, it's almost like, all right, well, now you've got him, Michaelis, Hicks, and Montgomery, or not Hicks, but Flaherty and Montgomery, those 4 that you feel like are solid options to keep you in games. And what we've seen over the past 4 games is when the Cardinals starters keep them in it, which could just mean 6-3, right? 6 innings, 3 runs, quality start of the minimum variety. That's been enough. That's been enough for the Cardinals to hang in there and have the offense do the rest, have the bullpen do just enough to make sure you come away with a victory. Like, that's been happening. And so things are starting to come together in terms of all the different facets of the team working in conjunction. We talked about the lack of cohesion a lot this season, where they just have not had all those groups kind of pulling their weight in the same direction at the same time. If you had to, you weren't going to have the other one, sort of thing. Right now, we're seeing kind of a nice blend, a nice combination of all the things happening at the same time. And so what does that mean? I have no idea. Maybe it means completely nothing, but it was interesting to watch. I'll give it that on Tuesday. Nolan Arenado at the center of it all. We talked a little bit about Dylan Carlson. I don't have to wax poetic too much, but I still maintained exactly where I was yesterday. Dylan Carlson should get opportunity. I get that he's not as potent against right-handed pitching, but again, the one shot he got tonight against a righty, he didn't make the most of it. Like, didn't get a hit, didn't get a home run, anything like that. But 100 miles per hour off the bat, stung it to center field, like, good swing. He's capable. Give him more opportunities. I think he'll continue to show you that. But the Cardinals are putting their eggs back in the Tyler O'Neill basket, and that's going to be for better or worse. And it might be for better. Like, it very well might be that Tyler O'Neill finds the power stroke, runs the bases well like he does, and just has a little bit of an edge over a guy like Carlson in all those categories because O'Neill's got more power. He's got more speed. He's got more athleticism. He does not have more defensive instincts in center field. But you know what? He is a 2-time Gold Glover in left. Keep him in left, and that's a pretty good thing. I think he's going to do a nice job for you defensively if that's where you keep him. But the Cardinals have put too many guys out of too many roles that they were destined to just kind of stay in and thrive in. And I think that's led to some of the weirdness that has gone on in the early months of this season. But yeah, I don't have a lot else to say about Dylan Carlson other than, if he had hit that home run, I would have ceased to exist right there in the press box. No cheering in the press box. I'm not cheering. I'm not, I talk all the time about I'm not a Cardinal fan, but if Dylan Carlson did that, I was telling people, like, I almost hope it doesn't happen because I am not, it's just going to be a lot for my night to have that, to have to talk about that. I probably, Elon Musk, I don't know if he's still rate limiting people on Twitter, but I probably wouldn't have been able to use my account with all the all the people that would have been hashtagging Everyday Dylan to me. It would have been an all-timer, given just the way the last couple of days have gone for Carlson specifically and how we've talked so much about it on the podcast. That would have been hysterical. Dylan fell a little bit short of that. But Arenado did that. So let's go ahead and talk about this. I do want to issue another quick reminder to subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@bschaeffer12. Right here, click the subscribe button if you're watching or listening to this video on YouTube as we speak. And make sure to get your thoughts in the comments section below on where the Cardinals are at. Would it take a couple more wins before you just go, yeah, you know what? Screw it. I'm back in. I'm back in on the notion that the Cardinals could make a run this year. Or are you not allowing yourself to be put into that vulnerable position where you could once again be harmed emotionally? Maybe that's the way you feel as a Cardinals fan, because you've long since given up on the notion of a playoff run. You put that in the back burner. You put it out of your mind entirely. And it would maybe take a lot more than just a few measly wins to get you back on board. Let me know exactly where you are, Cardinals fans. Enjoy hearing from you on tonight's Cardinals game and anything else related to this team right now. But I want to talk about specifically the Arenado home run, because I don't know how in the world, if you're sitting in there in the opposing dugout, Skip Schumacher, you don't walk Arenado instantly. That dude better not even get his feet inside the chalk of the batter's box. You say, no, get your ass to first. You're not batting right now against the lefty. Not on my watch. I mean, Skip Schumacher was there. Like, he was physically in the Cardinals dugout all year last year, unless I'm like missing something, to see what Arenado does against lefties. And I do acknowledge this. I checked out the splits because I kind of figured it would go my way, and it honestly didn't. He's basically been the same guy this year against righties and lefties, about an 848 or 849, whatever OPS. He's been virtually identical. I don't know if those numbers were prior to tonight. I think so, because I think it was a baseball reference job. So that'll boost the lefty numbers probably a little bit above what he's been against right-handed pitching. But like Arenado historically, he's got a 979 OPS for his career coming into today against left-handed pitching. It's about 130 some odd points higher than what he does against right-handed pitching. He is a fiend that feasts on lefties. It's just always been that way. Skip Schumacher's got to know this. And I thought, I think Skip Schumacher is a sharp manager. He probably will win Manager of the Year, although the Marlins are kind of falling off a little bit, and so they'll need to maintain and kind of get back to where they were for that to happen. But Skip Schumacher, I think, is really smart. Cardinals fans would have had a conniption if Ollie Marmol gave the explanation that Skip Schumacher gave for why they did pitch to Arenado instead of walking him. We'll play this from Bally Sports, Florida, and let's see if you can spot the moment where Cardinals fans would go, holy crap, that's his explanation? Oh my gosh. Because I don't think it's going to be hard to pick out.
Was there any consideration there at the end, maybe not pitching to Arenado with second base open, or?
Yeah, you consider it, and you have Puck out there, and Wilson's 1 for 2 against Puck. So, I know the numbers, and, maybe if he was behind the count, 2-0, that type of thing, that I'd walk him. Hindsight, of course, if you knew he's going to hit a home run, yeah, you'd love to walk him now. But, yeah, there was conversation about it, and, obviously when something like that happens, you question the non-intentional walk.
All right, you heard it there. I'm assuming you guys picked out what I picked out, where Skip Schumacher says Wilson and Contreras was the on-deck batter in that spot. He had first and third. Second base is open. The only run that matters is the one that's on third base, because it's bottom of an extra inning, the home team batting. He scores, it's done. So it doesn't really matter what else is on base. You want to just have the best matchup that you possibly can in that spot. And instead of going to Wilson Contreras and taking your chances against him, which, by the way, Wilson Contreras is like a 1,600 OPS in the month of July or something. He's been on a tear. He's been really good. Offensively, he's done a nice job. So I get that. But I think the pedigree of hitter, Arenado versus Contreras, I would, with a lefty on the mound specifically, I assume that Contreras has good splits against lefties as well. I know that Arenado is a freak against lefties, historically. So did you pick that out from Skip Schumacher? He says Wilson is 1 for 2 against Puck in his career. What the Puck? Really? Puck, it's the guy's name, AJ Puck. I didn't say anything bad. That was fine. Trust me, that was fine. The FCC wouldn't even be able to do anything about that, and we don't answer to them on this show. But anyway, 1 for 2. Talk about small sample sizes. My goodness. 1 for 2 with a strikeout, by the way. The one time that he was out, it was on a K. So I thought that was wild. Just, I guess Arenado had no numbers against Puck previously, or he was 0 for 1 or something like that. But I thought that was crazy. Like, Skip Schumacher is savvy. But the numbers of 1 for 2, I feel like, is kind of a weak position to take because that is a micro sample. And again, half the time, he struck out against him. So maybe you could say he's got a 50% K rate. Flip it around and turn it to your favor. And this was not revisionist history. This was not hindsight. This was not anything like that. This was me in the press box. The moment is about to unfold. There's some idle chatter amongst the folks sitting up there. Hey, you think you walk Arenado here? And I look up and I'm like, what? Well, yeah, you walk Arenado here. Why is he in the box? Get him to first base, Skip. I look up and I almost felt like concern for Skip Schumacher. The fact that Arenado was still standing in the box. I thought, well, that's not legal. Once they say they don't have to throw the pitches anymore to intentionally walk somebody. Arenado knows this. Come on. Pace of play. Rob Manfred's going to be pissed. Get over to first base. What are you doing? What? They're not walking him? Oh, my goodness. And I just started shaking my head, just kind of back and forth. Just shaking my head like, can't believe this. Y'all are about to see. And we saw. Like, I've never been so confident that a guy was about to hit a walk-off yak in my life. We do the yard calls up in the press box. You get 1 pitch per game. So, yeah, someone's going yard here. I'd already used mine, but it was pretty good guess that Arenado was going to do it against Puck. He's a left-handed pitcher, feeds him a fastball, belt high, boom, goodbye, game over. I get that Wilson Contreras has been hot, but 1 for 2, come on. I don't know about that one, Chief. I don't know about that one. Good for Arenado, though. 21 home runs, 71 RBIs. He cares about RBIs. I had that little run around on Twitter with people today. My buddy Ryan posted the NL leaderboard for RBIs, and Arenado was number 2 with 68, I guess it was at the time. And skipped right over 69 to 71 when he hits the 3-run shot. Cardinals win at 5-2. I was telling everybody, it'll be 4:30 in the morning. I'll be waking up in a cold sweat going, Skip, why'd you do it? Why'd you do it? Why'd you pitch to Arenado? When Ollie Marble says, yeah, you have a pretty good feeling the game's about to be over when you see him stepping in there. Probably could have told his former bench coach, like, hey, man, think about this. You sure you want to do that? No, Skip doing the Cardinals a solid with that one. Listen, Contreras very well may have won the game, too. It's a bad situation to be in when you're the road team. You didn't score in the top half of the 10th inning, and now the Cardinals get their Manfred man. Like, it's a bad spot to be in. You had the middle of the lineup up. Contreras has been having a really great month as well. Easily could have done the same thing. But I think if you're going to tell me I get to choose, I got to face Arenado or Contreras, and there's really no impact on anything other than like just getting that individual guy out. And honestly, setting up the force out in any bag, any base, by putting a man on second, it can't hurt, right? Screamer down the third baseline. Third baseman just has to step on it, step on the bag, and that's another way to get it out. So I don't think there's any downside to making that deal and walking Arenado. But managers don't like to do that for whatever reason. Like, they already walked one guy, walked Goldschmidt, I think it was. You already walked one guy, and then Nootbaar doesn't make it happen. And so, but it's like, you can walk the next guy too. It's a weird, I don't know if it's a pride thing or if it's a narrative thing that, like, if I walk 2 guys basically to extend the inning and make sure we get to face Wilson Contreras instead, how motivated is that going to make him to, shove it in a place? Yeah, probably pretty much motivation would be there. But Nolan Arenado is motivated enough too, and he's a better hitter. So I was scratching my head at that one for sure. But at the end of the day, Cardinals get the win 5-2. And by the way, why didn't they score in the top of the 10th, Miami? Jojo Romero, relishing the 10th inning opportunity. Got a chance to talk to him after the game, and he said that he doesn't mind it. He likes the notion of pitching that 10th inning, knowing that he's got to make something happen with the team's back against the wall a little bit through no fault of their own. That's just the rule for extra innings now. But he said, I like it. I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie is what he said. So that gets me going. So good for him, because it's the second time in like a 10-day span or 11-day span that JoJo Romero records a major league win. He's now 2-0 on the season and 2-0 in his career. He was the guy that had like no MLB decisions, wins or losses, or saves for that matter, for like the first 40-some-odd appearances of his career. Had one on June 9th, pitching the 10th inning. That was a 2-inning outing for him, gave up nothing. And then tonight, just the 1 inning in the 10th inning, 2 strikeouts for JoJo Romero. And that was key, man. He's the one guy that I think active in the bullpen right now that I'm pretty confident is going to be in the bullpen next year. And I was already kind of thinking this before tonight, but this almost solidifies it. One game's not going to solidify it. If he loses himself the way that like Genesis Cabrera did this year and over the past couple of years, really, then maybe they changed their thought on that. But he has really started to kind of settle into his own. And I think he's going to be a lefty in the mix next year. Other than that, no, I think you got 7 other spots to fill, 7 spots to figure out. Ryan Helsley, if he's still on the team, you talk about trades and stuff like that with Helsley. But if he's still here, you feel good about Helsley. But even like Gallegos, I don't know what they're going to do about his situation with the struggles he's had. Maybe he's a trade candidate as well. Stratton's a free agent. And everybody else, like Palante, what do you do? Yeah. Going to be kind of interesting. I think Palante definitely, with the skill set that he has as kind of the fireman, able to get the ground balls, they might give him a little bit more latitude to try and fix it and be part of that mixture next year. But there could be a lot of kind of turnover, I think, in that bullpen. But JoJo Romero, wanted to make sure I mentioned his name tonight because I think he's starting to solidify himself as somebody who's probably going to be having a job next year out of that bullpen and maybe the leverage guy. I mean, he's pitching leverage right now. Doesn't get much more leverage than a 10th inning spot where you already got a guy on second base. Nothing you could do about that. So nice job by JoJo Romero. ERA down to like 2.7. Couple of strikeouts tonight. Good stuff. I want to make sure, though, I get to some of this audio from Nolan Arenado before we get out of here, because, I'm naming the episode on YouTube after one of the quotes that he had, and the quote was actually from last night, and so I'll play that one first, where he talks about next year. What are you guys bothering talking about next year for? I'm not into this white flag talk. I'm not participatory in the white flag business. I'm in the business of getting it done today, winning ball games now, and having that be the sole goal and focus for this team. So I want to play that from Nolan Arenado to give you an idea about kind of where he was yesterday. And then after the walk-off home run tonight, talk about the quick math that he did figuring out the division standings. But here's Arenado first talking about the next year talk, the idea that the Cardinals are kind of selling off. That's the plan that Mozeliak explained on Monday. And it looks like they're going to be moving some pieces to the detriment of the 2023 team. So working on next year, is that something that Nolan Arenado is gung-ho all about? Well, not exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think about next year. I think that's a terrible strategy. I ain't got time for thinking about next year. I got to think about now and what I need to get done and try to help this team win. But there's no guarantees next year's going to be a great year either. So, and there's no guarantees I'm going to be healthy next year either. So I think about now, going out and competing.
And so I should probably clarify, I don't remember the exact context, but it wasn't him saying, John Mozeliak, this is a terrible strategy to say that that was not what it was. The question was not pertaining to the notion of like, hey, comment upon the idea that the team is going to be selling off. I think it was just people were trying to ask questions about like personally where he is on things. And his mindset is not like, I'm going to prove over the rest of this season that I can do good so that I can feel good going into 2024. That's sort of what the line of questioning was there. And you heard from Arenado, terrible strategy, not something he's interested in doing. And the money quote, ain't got no time. Ain't got time for worrying about next year. Worrying about now. That's where his head's at. And then tonight he hits the walk-off home run and is able to sort of identify a little bit with the standings and where things are. And John Denton, you'll hear, ask Arenado, hey, is there still time to make a run at this thing? Here's from Tuesday night. The first clip was from Monday. This from Tuesday night at Busch Stadium after the Cardinals 5-2 win over the Marlins.
Is there still time to make a run, to put a run together?
I mean, We got 60-plus games left. We're down 10 games. We're 10 games out of the division. We're not going to win that wild card, so we got to try to win this division. And, I wouldn't put it past us, but, like I said, I try not to focus on those things.
Is that, maybe that's where it comes from for you. Is like if you stop looking at the standings, you relax.
Yeah, I think for me, I think for us in general, there's no point in looking at that. We're far back, and when you look at it, it's kind of depressing. So, the goal is just go out there. We have a game tomorrow, try to win it. This stretch right here that we're in, 15 games or 17 games straight, it's not easy. So we got to find a way to finish this stretch strong, and we'll see where we're at the end of it.
Not trying to look at the standings. We got a game tomorrow. Let's go win it. That's the mindset of this team right now. But the other side of that coin is Arenado knows the standings. He knows they're 10 back. You guys in that clubhouse know. And when you're 10 back, you probably don't spend much time trying to think about it, right? It registers. You have a good memory because you're a professional athlete and you can remember stuff. That's probably part of the deal. And you win a game the next day, you go, oh, all right, well, we were 10 back. Hey, what'd that other team do? Oh, they lost? Okay, well, now we're 9 back. Probably not that difficult to remember. I'm being a little hyperbolic. You don't have to look at the standings every day necessarily to have it in your head kind of where you are. But they're not fixated on the standings. But I think there could come a point where you continue to rattle off some wins. What if it gets to 7 games? What about 6? What about 5.5? And suddenly it's like, all right, the record may be 7 games below 500, but if you're 5 games back in the division, that is shouting distance. You still get to play the Brewers a few more times the rest of the way. I don't know. I think there is still the potential that you could talk yourself into seeing a run happen. But I want to be clear. I don't think it can happen simultaneous to the Cardinals selling off pieces. Unless they get just a pre-Tommy John version of Dakota Hudson that also brings the defense of that era with him. I just... And the Cardinals they have good infield defenders still. But he's a ground ball guy. He's got to have everybody sharp. He's got to have Paul DeYoung probably showing a little more range than I thought he showed tonight. They got to have whoever's going to be at second base on their game. Like Dakota Hudson, he gives up a lot of contact. We know that. If you're suddenly relying upon him instead of Montgomery, probably take a step back, right? If you're relying upon I don't even know who instead of Flaherty, you're probably taking a step back. And no, they still have no fifth starter as it stands. Like Hudson's kind of the fifth starter. He's pitching tomorrow. Day game at Busch Stadium, Alcantara versus Hudson. One of them was sent to the Marlins for Marcell Ozuna. The other one was not. And they were both kind of in the system around the same time. And I don't know if the Marlins would have been interested in Hudson, but that's another one, kind of like the Arozarena thing. Well, they have to have Arozarena, or would they have taken Bader? Would they have taken O'Neill? Would they have taken... Same thing I wonder with the other deal. Would they have... Did they identify Alcantara, or did they look for, hey, a starting pitcher is what we're looking for here, as much pitching as we can get, and we'll settle on, this Alcantara guy. That's fine. Like, I really would love to have been a fly on the wall to know kind of the ins and outs of that. But nevertheless, I just don't think they can do both. I don't think you can sell these pitchers unless you're trading a hitter that is going to hurt to trade a hitter, but you're trading a hitter for a bona fide starter that goes right into your rotation to try and, again, buy while you sell in a certain way, or sell/reorganize at other spots on the roster. It would just be very hard to imagine internally trading away Montgomery, Flaherty, and then internally filling those spots and having success the rest of the season. I think you're going to have to bring in guys, and that's part of the trade, right, is hopefully getting talent that can help you soon. Well, maybe soon means 2023, and they could do something really crazy, trade away some of their better arms, the guys that are on short-term expiring deals, but then still find a way that have the guys that they bring back in those deals kind of just slide into the roles and figure out a way to keep this train rolling, as the Cardinals are winning games right now. 4 in a row, 7 of 9. I think Wednesday's important. If you want to continue to feel good about things, Wednesday's a big one. Sandy Alcantara kind of slay that demon. He's one that haunts you for sure. He's always pitched well against the Cardinals when he's had the chance. We'll see what St. Louis can do against him on Wednesday afternoon, 1:15 from Busch Stadium. I don't know if I covered everything that I intended to cover, but hey, I'm at 15 minutes. It's very late at night. Let me know on YouTube in the comments section if there's anything else that I need to get to, anything else you want to know about this Cardinals team that we haven't discussed, and just throw your general thoughts out there on the St. Louis Cardinals and where things are right now. YouTube.com/@BSchaeffer12. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel if you're enjoying the content here. You can also subscribe to Be Shafe Daily. That's the podcast you're hearing now, essentially, on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Make sure you guys rate and review with 5 stars on that. All right, thank you guys so much for listening. We'll talk to you next time on Be Shafe Daily. Peace.